I'm going to do a carving of a dead rabbit. This is a copy of something that was off a cuckoo clock from the mid 19th century. It's a hunting clock, so I had lots of sort of dead game hanging off it. This one had a rabbit on one side of the dial and a pheasant on the other, and it would have had a stag's head mounted on the top and cross guns and hunting horn and stuff like that. Originally it was carved in a single block of lime, but I'm going to do it in cherry. So I've got a piece of inch cherry and I've planed it up, and as long as I keep it in sequence and stack it up like that, this is quarter sawn, so the heart side's down this side, and the lines, the rings sort of line up quite well. If I glue that together, once it's carved, it'll be fine because there's so much texture on this. You're not likely to see the joins or anything. I mean, it works quite well anyway, so that should work fine. It's a little wider than it needs to be. There are some shakes down here, so when I've glued it together, I'll cut that off, and then whatever I can get off this, the sappy side as well. There's a bit of sap here, but I'll lose that when it's carved anyway, so I'll just make it a little bit smaller so it's the right size. So I'll glue it together, and then I'll have to plane it up again, and then draw this pattern on and start bandsawing it out. I've glued them together and trimmed them to size, and I've planed these two faces perfectly square. The reason for that is these are the two sides that sit on the bed of the bandsaw. So if you don't get them square, when you're cutting out, it messes up your lines. So I've transferred the pattern onto the front and on the top. And the first thing I'm going to do is cut out these bits at the end, and then take this front off in one go, and then go back and just bandsaw out the bits of detail. The reason is I need that to be taped back on so that I can bandsaw the rest of it out. There's a shake here and there's a bit of a knot as well. There's a tiny one down there. But when I cut this out, I'll lose all of that, so that doesn't matter. That one's quite close, but it's shallow. I don't think that'll be a problem. The reason I wanted to carve it, it was just such a nicely carved object. They're very decorative, these. They didn't always have hunting scenes. They just some had live birds on them and stuff like that. But I just thought it was worth doing a copy. I've put a new blade on, and I've trimmed the guide blocks, and I've made sure it's perfectly square to the bed before I start cutting. So that's the bandsawing done. I do need to keep this piece because I'll be using it later on. Right, now I need to start cutting away a few more bits that I don't need. At the moment it looks like it's got 6 back legs. So this one here I need to keep because that's the far side leg, so I don't need that. This one is the near side leg, so I'll keep that and get rid of that. And this bit here is actually a branch that it's hanging off. So when it's on the clock, there'll be a tree trunk behind, a carving of a tree trunk, and this cord here is hooked around a branch, which is this. So I need to get rid of that as well. Right, I've marked it out so it might look a little bit clearer now. So that is to be cut away. All these shady areas I get rid of. So that's the leg there coming round through the cord down to here. This is where the tail is, so I need to get rid of that and that bit at the back. It'll be rounded off at the back and come to a bit of a point at the front, but at the moment I'm just blocking everything out and getting everything in the right shape. That one can go there, leaving these two, the branch and the other foot. I come round to the front. I'll start off by getting rid of this piece here. This is the near side foot, but actually it's there, so I'll need to get rid of that as well eventually. I'll get rid of this first and sort of dig my way in and split between the ears, which are there. Once I've got rid of that, it's a bit easier to get in and start marking out the next bits that I need to get rid of. I've finished roughing out the back legs, and I've also taken a little piece out here to separate the branch from the far side leg. It's revealed the cord a little better. These two bits have been taken out to locate the tail. I need to cut a V in here to separate the legs, and the same on the other side. That bit there is the belly, which will come straight down. Going to the front, I've taken that section out to reveal the far side leg. This is the near side leg, so I need to remove this bit here, that bit in between to separate them, and a bit there at the front. I've taken some out between the ears. I still need to go a bit deeper, but it's getting a bit tight now. I'll wait until I can round it off a bit, because it needs to get down to that line, which is the top of the head. This V here is the other side of the head, and that's the tip of the snout. So I need to remove quite a lot from there. This section here, this island, remains flat, so everything else needs rounding off, and obviously quite a lot more here because the head's over this side, which is why the ears hang straight down on that side but is curved on this side. The reason I kept this off cut is so when I'm carving on this side of it, I can clamp it down with a holdfast, or even get it in the vise if I need to. So I've finished off the blocking out. I've separated the front legs, so I know where they are now, and I've taken some off the head, but I need to take a little bit more off to get it to the right width. But I'm going to leave that for the time being. I'm just going to concentrate on the back and work my way up to the front anyway. We've got the foot there, that's the heel. The lower leg comes down here somewhere, and the kneecaps round here. It goes up to the pelvis with the upper leg. Rib cage obviously around there. And this bit was sunken in because of the way it's hanging. So when I do this corner, it'll be take a bit more off there as well than I will up here. This technique of chopping out is something I picked up from Ian Norbury's books on figure carving. I did something similar anyway on the surrounds to separate the leaves and the branches, but this takes it a bit further, and it keeps everything where you want it, and it makes things a lot easier, and I found it very helpful for this kind of work where you're carving something in the round. These little grooves here are ripples of the fur, the skin. There's one here which follows around to that one, so if you work out your high point, you know that's right and that's right, and then you just take off the corner and you follow that line round, and this one again from there to there, and that one is from there to there. So there's 3 ripples as you go down round the neck. Like I say, because of the way it's hanging upside down, the gravity is pulling everything that way. So I'm going to start with the back end and work my way up and start putting the detail in. Well, that's it finished. Must admit I'm a bit disappointed with it. It's not as good as I wanted it to be. It's not too bad, but it's just not as good as the original one. But the original was carved by someone who does this day in, day out, you know. They knew the subject very well. I only carve now and again, so. But it would be nice if it was better. I know where I've gone wrong in parts, but if you look at the original one, which I'll show you now. So these are photographs of the original one. You can see it's much more confidently done. But they were real artists, the people who did this. They're not just novelty clockmakers. They really knew the stuff, and they're just not appreciated, I don't think. The fur on this is much coarser than it should be. A lot of them are much finer than that, but this has a sort of a more dramatic look about it, which I do like. And this is actually pushing my carving skills to the limit, really. But I do these things just to try and get better, because you've got to keep pushing yourself. I think these ripples in the side here, they're in the right place and they're not too bad, but they could have been better. They're supposed to roll around into the belly as well, which I didn't realise until I'd finished it. I think that's a little bit overworked, looks a bit clumsy, as does that bit. It's just the fur, it's just not carved as well as I like. I look at it and I think, yeah, I know how to do that, and then it just doesn't quite work. I carve it in my head over and over again and keep thinking about it. But when it comes to doing it, you just sort of, I don't know, just have a bit of a blind spot on it. But you do get better. The more you practice, the better you get. And that's what I'm trying to do. Always carving in the round is never easy. And if you hung this on an original case, you'd probably get away with it. It'd probably look okay. It'd be hanging down that way. It'd probably look fine, but I prefer it came out better. But you learn. I'm a better carver now than I was before I started it. Not by much, but a little bit.